Hi, I'm Roxanne Richardson, and this is the Casual Friday podcast. In this week's podcast, I have an announcement about the future of Technique Tuesday videos and what's to come in the future from my channel. I have two finished projects. One of them I had to knit in self-defense. And then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming Finish It February. So let's get started. So you may have seen my YouTube community post, I think it was early last week, or the post in my Ravelry group that at least for now, I am discontinuing Technique Tuesday. It has to do with my long-standing decision that what I do with my knitting is about me and what brings me joy, not about what others want or expect from me. I made this decision back in 2005 when I came back to knitting. I'd been writing for the few years before that, trying to write a novel, and I was worried about what my critique group thought, and then what would editors think, and what did the general public want to read, all that kind of stuff. And it really destroyed my joy of the writing, and I lost my writing voice for a while. And it was a real struggle. So when I came back to knitting, it was in order to remember what it was like to be creative for the sake of being creative and not in order to please other people. At that same time, I discovered the Master Hand Knitting program, and I love to learn. It isn't just I love to learn, I need to learn. It's like I have a drive to learn, and I always want to learn more about things that I'm passionate about. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. This is a way for me to learn more that I've always wanted to about something that I love. And as I got into it a few weeks and really understood like how to evaluate my own knitting, and then thinking about when I knit these swatches, and I'm going to be sending them in, and someone's going to say, yes, this swatch passes or not, I started getting that perfectionism feeling of having to please somebody else. And I'm like, I recognized it. And I said, oop, I got to back away from this cliff. I do not want to fall over this cliff. This is about me and what I want. And nobody is going to interfere with that. This is for me, and I'm protecting it at all costs. Now, a few months later, I kind of had the urge to go back to the program. And so I did it the first level in spurts like that, where I'd work on it for about 3 weeks, and then I would take a break of 3, 4, 5, 6 months before I would return to it. So it took me 2 years to get through level 1, and I was excited to start level 2. Started level 2, got about halfway through. We went on a big vacation, with the extended family, and then I found out about Ravelry, and I just had taken a break from level 2 for a little bit. I was still excited about it, and then once I got on Ravelry, because there was a wait list at the time, the next 4 years was not spent working on the Master Hand Knitting program. I was learning more about what other knitters were struggling with. I started teaching at my local yarn shop because I wanted to. I answered people's technical knitting questions on Ravelry. I started writing my own patterns, and all of this was very exciting to me. I still wanted to work on the Master Hand Knitting program. The early days of Ravelry were just so exciting, finding this online community. When I did finish up level 2, I was very excited about it, and then I went right on to level 3. Well, during this time, I was also starting to write a column on Ravelry answering technical knitting questions, and started doing little videos as references for those columns or as references for my yarn shop videos, because YouTube was new too. This is just like a video sharing site. I didn't expect anybody to see these videos who didn't have a direct link. I did maybe 30, 35 videos over the period of a couple of years, and then really didn't do them very often at all. So it wasn't until 2017 that I thought, I want to try doing videos every week. And let me generate a list of ideas. And in about 20 minutes, I came up with 150 ideas. I'm like, I definitely have enough for a year of videos. We'll see how it goes. I really liked that process of figuring out how to teach on videos, teaching these techniques. And then a year later, I started Casual Friday, and so I was doing 2 videos a week. And I did 2 videos a week for 3 years. And then I'm like, oh, this is getting to be a bit of a grind. In the meantime, I also started writing technical knitting articles for Interweave. And when I was asked, my immediate response was thinking, oh, sure, I could do that. And then I remembered I have to think about not what can I do, but what do I want to do? Do I want to do this? Do I want to have deadline pressure? Do I want to, try to do this? And so I did do that for about 5 years and I really enjoyed it, but I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. But this is what happens at each step when I'm asked to do something or when I think of doing something that involves my knitting. I really think about whether or not it's something that I want to do. What am I going to get out of it? Yeah, I know that if I write an article, other people will get something out of it, but what do I get out of it? Like, not just money, but like, what do I get from that experience? And so that's how I have been on this whole journey in the past 20 years. Last Tuesday, I'd been struggling for the several days leading up to trying to do a Technique Tuesday video. Like, I just wasn't feeling it. And I think there's a couple of reasons. One is I still have a list of 199 ideas, I think. So the list never shrinks, even though I keep using things up the list, because I get new ideas, people ask new questions, I add it to the list. It's that the things that are currently on the list are either things I'm not that interested personally in doing as a video, or they're more complicated than what I could do in a 10 or 15 minute technique video. So I have done a couple of videos that were 20, 25 minutes long, and those tend to be how to knit a hat without a pattern, how to knit fingerless mitts without a pattern. So it isn't a technique, it's a whole project. Those take time, and in some cases I feel like, this is really trying to push it to get it into this 20-minute, 25-minute format. What I'm thinking that I would like to do instead, and this is a thought that I've had for a couple of years now, is to create classes. YouTube calls them courses, and it's like a playlist of connected videos. And you can use existing videos and create this playlist, class out of a playlist. I'm not sure how well that would work in my situation. And then you could also create linking new content. I'm thinking what I want to do is just create a course, and there would be linked shorter videos in segments that teach a particular concept and really lead you through that. It might be through a project, it might be in some other way. I don't know. It's just something I'm thinking about, and it's going to take me some time to figure out I'm going to do it. So I'm not going away. I'm still here for Casual Friday, and I may now and then do a Technique Tuesday video, like a one-off one that I think, oh, this would be really good and that I'm excited about doing. But I'm not going to be doing that on a schedule. And then the courses, I just have to figure out how I want to do them and what topics I want to cover. If you guys have ideas about a course that you would like, it could be like, instead of a video on short rows, it could be a course on short rows. Maybe it's a course. One thing I've been wanting to do for a few years, which probably isn't going to appeal to most of you, is a how to knit, like a thing specifically for beginners, creating a course like that. But other kinds of courses on how to knit certain kinds of things, and maybe have written tutorials that go along with them. Like I have my August sock knit along written tutorial on how to knit custom fit socks, and I have a lot of sock videos that go along with that tutorial, but maybe something that combines the two, so that there's written content and then there is video content that can stand on its own, but is also supportive of the written content, and where the written content would give you more depth and something to easily refer to. I don't know. I don't know what it will be, but I'd love to hear your ideas. But that's what's going on with Technique Tuesday. I just thought I'd let you guys know. Every couple of years, I knit my husband a new hat. At the beginning, I had to be really careful about making sure I got his approval on the yarn, and then I would find a pattern and then show him a selection of patterns, and then he would approve that. And those early patterns were kind of boring because it seemed to me like he wasn't very adventurous as far as stitch patterns. But then he started going on Ravelry himself, and then he would pick something out that he thought was really interesting. And typically the things that he has picked have been really interesting for me to knit as well. And it always delights me that he finds something that I would find really interesting that I wouldn't necessarily have thought that he would like. So in December of 2014, I was going to knit him a hat, and he picked out this one called Crossroads. And I thought, well, that is really cool. It doesn't take very much yarn. It takes 2 colors. Hats don't take a full 100 grams, even if you were knitting out of a single color, unless it's super heavily cabled. So I was able to use 2 coordinating colors of green that I happen to have in my stash, and he really liked that hat. Well, every evening we go for a walk, and when you get to the fall, especially after daylight saving is over, it's very dark. So even though we'll take a walk at 5:30 at night, it's completely pitch black. And we were going for a walk, and he was wearing that hat. And then as you know, we hit the 1.5 mile mark, he's warmed up. So he took his hat off and he put it in his back pocket. And it was pretty snowy outside. There had been a pretty fresh new snow. We were getting quite a bit of snow at that point. And we got home, and he realized the hat was gone. We had no idea where it was, and it seemed fruitless to try to go back in the dark and try to find it. And he mentioned several times over the winter how much he missed that hat because that was his favorite. He just really liked the way it fit. He liked everything about it. So I decided that I was going to replace that hat. It'd been 11 years, and I thought, you know, he held on to it for 11 years. That's pretty good. And I don't mind knitting him another one. Well, I didn't have any more of that green yarn in my stash that I'd use. I didn't have anything that I thought would work. And I went to my local yarn shop, and I was looking. They had greens, but they didn't have 2 greens that would contrast enough, that would work well enough. So I just looked for any 2 colors that I thought looked nice together and would work for this pattern. And then I knit the hat, didn't tell him about it. And then I started worrying, what if he doesn't like this color combination? So the other day I surprised him and showed him the hat. And he was really happy. And he's like, well, the only thing different is it's just different colors than it was before. So he didn't go, ooh, I don't like those colors. He probably knows better than to say that to my face right when I'm giving it to him anyway. But usually I do consult him on these things. But I knew he liked this hat. It's single rounds of color, but they're done in pearl. But what's interesting about it, and the reason it's called Crossroads, is the stitch pattern here. So the lighter color is going diagonally, the darker color goes vertically, and then they intersect at different points. I'll go to the overhead to show you some things about it that I find really interesting from a knitter's perspective about how this pattern works. So this is what the Crossroads hat looks like up close. You can see as these come across, they start to intermingle a bit. These are slipped stitches. So when I'm working a dark round, I will knit the dark stitches here, but I will slip these. And then when I'm knitting a round of light color, these get slipped. And then these get worked, but they also get worked by crossing them over another stitch, just like a cable cross in a way. What I love is that you can alternate these single rounds of stockinette or reverse stockinette because you're purling them. And you'll get these lines of 2 sets of pearl bumps in there. There's no weirdness in how where you can get color blips. If you have a whiter stripe and then you switch a color, then you can see those blips of color. The only place that you can see like a single set of blips is on the first round where you work the first round of the light color. So if you look at this, where you have two sets of light color ones, this bottom one is the head of a stitch. You can see the head of the stitch and then the legs there. And then here's the running threads to them. So the running threads of this stitch are separated by two sets of dark bumps because this is the head of a dark stitch and these are the running threads of a stitch that's way up here. So it's just that the way things are interlinked, it creates a really great striping effect in the pearls. And I really love that. I will leave a link down below to the Ravelry pattern page so you can find out more about this pattern. So I mentioned that we take a walk every night, and that is true year-round. If it's super cold outside, that doesn't stop us. We have the weather gear to keep ourselves warm. I talked about this, I don't know, a month or so ago about, different levels of coldness. We switch what kind of gloves or mittens we're wearing. I will switch which type of scarf. I might add an additional layer around my neck and shoulders. I'll have different hats I wear, different coats, depending on exactly how cold it is. One of the things that can be really tricky for me is when it is really cold. And so when I say really cold, I mean below 0 Fahrenheit. And I'll put what that is Celsius. And we can get the temperatures usually at some point in the winter are going to be -20 Fahrenheit actual temperature. But then the real field temperature can be even colder. And we will still take our half-hour walk. And so it's just different layers. Most extreme cold, I will have long underwear, like my jeans. I will have snow pants on, really warm boots with wool socks, a t-shirt and a sweater. I might have this zipper neck thing that covers the top of my chest and the back of my chest. I have a down coat that goes down almost to my knees that has a hood. And then, of course, I wear a scarf and a hat. Most of the time, I can get away with this hat right here. This is my basic hat that it's worsted weight and it's got extra long ribbing, so it folds back and it gives me double layer on my ears and my forehead. Until the temperature is about 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, I'll put the Celsius on the screen. I have this scarf. It's very lightweight mohair triangular thing, and it goes around. Hopefully this won't disturb the microphone too much. It goes around a couple times. Now this has gotten worn and stretched out, so it's a little bit loopier than I like, which means I just need to wash it and block it. But this will keep my neck warm enough until it gets, well below freezing. So in the 25 Fahrenheit, which is probably like -4 Celsius. Then I switch to this super bulky cabled hat, and this turns up as well. And I also have this scarf here, which is a blend of like merino, alpaca, silk, cashmere. It's a really great yarn. It used to be sold by Knit Picks. Nobody makes a yarn with this blend anymore. It's very warm. It's not terribly wide, which is one of the challenges. And the problem with having the scarf and then the hat is that there can be this kind of gap right here of exposed skin that gets cold, and it will go up into my ears. And so what I do is I take my scarf and I put it over my head like this, and then I take my hat and put it down like that. So it's like having giant ear flaps, and then I can wrap it around. But because so much of the length of the scarf is up here in my head, there's not much length for my neck. And so it goes around this way. And then it keeps my face warm, but it doesn't do a whole lot around my chest. So I was thinking this winter, what could I knit that could solve that problem? I thought, well, ear flaps would really help, but I also, want the scarf and you can get those gaps. And I thought, well, what if I knit a hat that has the scarf attached to it? And so I spent some time looking to see if somebody had already invented this. There are these hooded scarves, which are a scarf with like a hood that are kind of glamorous and will keep you warm if you're just, walking around, it's not that cold. That is not going to do it for me. A hooded scarf is not going to be enough because it's not coming down over my forehead. I need that on my forehead and doubled back. It was very nice looking, and it would look great if you were, going out somewhere, but not when it's dark in Minnesota and it's, 0 or 10 below. I spent some time thinking about it, and what I did was this hat right here. It's a scarf hat. So it's like 2 halves of a scarf that are attached to the back of the hat. So I'm going to do some overhead stuff to show you how it was constructed. But I thought about things like how I was going to attach the scarf so that it wouldn't pull edge stitches away. How could I still have that double layer around my ears and my forehead? And then how long would it need in order for it to go around my face and my neck and then come back and cross over my chest where the zipper comes up. This is what I came up with. And so I am using a bulky weight yarn. It's not super bulky, but it's bulky weight. I knit the hat first with the double band, and then the scarf was knit going downward from there. I didn't want to have a regular edge that I then picked up stitches because I was afraid that was, you pull the scarf, it's going to pull on those edge stitches. And so I created a way of making a really secure join and also have that double thick hem and all of that. So I'll go to the overhead and you can go through this journey. I recorded as I did different parts of it so that you could understand how I designed and constructed it, and then I'll model it for you at the end. Okay, so my idea is to make a hat. So if you look at it from the top, and this is the back of the hat, what I want is about 1/3 of the hat to be sort of attached to that edge and be knit out as a scarf, and then this 1/3 over here also be attached and knit as a scarf. So I'll have a full-length scarf. It's just that half of it will be coming out of the base of this part of the hat and half of it from that part of it. So if you look at it from the side, I'll have this sort of doubled hem here. So this will be in stockinette. There'll be a fold line here in pearls across this front 1/3. So it'll be a nice fold line. It'll be attached with a 3-needle join. And then across here, this will be open. And so I can pick up all of these stitches. It'll be like a provisional cast on here. And I can pick up the stitches from both halves of this doubled hem and then do a 3-needle join. So I'm joining those stitches together and then knit it down. So I started the hem here, and the way I'm doing this provisional cast on is that I actually did it as a long tail cast on. And so I used waste yarn for my thumb and the working yarn for my index finger. I could have done something like Judy's Magic Cast On. That would have required me to have 2 needles, and I would have to cast them on with the 2 circular needles, and then the 1 needle that's holding these stitches would be dangling the whole time. And I've done that before, and it drives me crazy. So any way that someone wants to do a provisional cast on would work. This is just the choice I made. I've gotten to the point where it's long enough and I want to do the fold line. So you can see I've got purl stitches right here. So here's the beginning of the round. And what I did was I put the first 24 stitches, that's a third, I've got 72 altogether. So the first 24 stitches I put on waste yarn. And then I did the same provisional cast on technique that I used at the bottom edge, which is that I cast on 24 new stitches using the waste yarn for my thumb and the working yarn for the stitches that were going to be on the needle. And then across the front stitches, I did the purls. And now I've come to the last 24 stitches of the round. So far I've put the last 24 stitches on waste yarn, and now I'm ready to create that provisional cast on using a long tail cast on. So I need to cast on 24 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and so on. What I like about this particular method in this situation is I never have to break the working yarn. I'm able to continue using it for both the provisional cast on to create the live loops on the needle, the purl stitches, and then the second set of provisional cast on stitches. So again, I could use a different type of provisional cast on, but it would require cutting yarn and rejoining and things like that. And for me, this is just an easier way to do things. Okay, so I've got my 24 stitches that are replacing the ones that are on hold. And now I can join back in the round and work the second half of this hem. All right, so I have finished knitting the length of the hem, and what I'm doing now, I want to join the cast on edge, that provisional cast on, to the live stitches on the needle. But first I need to thread a needle through the base of all of those stitches. So I go through and I bring the tip of the needle under the right leg of each stitch as I go along. And that's how I thread. And I'm using a slightly smaller needle. I think the needle I'm using, this is bulky yarn. So I'm knitting it using, I don't know if it's a US 10 or 10.5. So it's like an 6 to 6.5 millimeter. I'm not sure which. But I'm threading a US 8, which is a 5 millimeter through there. Because I don't have, first of all, it's easier to thread a smaller needle through. But secondly, I don't have another needle that's the same size as the one I knit with. And so using a smaller needle is fine because the stitches are already created. They're not going to get smaller somehow by being threaded on a smaller needle. So one thing I'm going to have to be careful of is that when I remove this waste yarn, this first stitch that's on the needle, that's connected to the tail, it's likely going to look like it's gone away, and I'll show you how I fix that later. And now I can snip away this waste yarn. So I use a very sharp pair of scissors, and I pull up on that waste yarn in a way so that I make sure that I'm not cutting any of the navy blue yarn. And I will just snip this all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to take out that bit of waste yarn that is at the very beginning, and you see how this is a stitch, but it's just easy to lose sight of. I'll just remember to keep this pulled over the needle when I'm joining the stitches together. So now I'm going to do a 3 needle join. So these are my live stitches that I've been knitting on. I'm going to pull up this set of stitches here, and I have this the other larger needle in that hand, and now I'm going to join them together. So it's a 3 needle join. It's just like a 3 needle bind off, except you're not ever binding anything off. So you work through the first stitch on the back needle and the front needle, grab the yarn, pull it through. I like to do them one at a time. It's easier for me to make sure that I'm pulling the yarn back through both stitches. If I try to keep them together and just pull it back through both of them, I'm never 100% sure I pulled it back through correctly. So I keep them a little bit apart from each other, pull that one off, then pull that one off. And this is just going to happen all the way around. So you can see I'm down to the last 3. I've got 3 in the front needle and only 2 on the back, and that's because that yarn tail has come down, and so I will pull it over for the last one. Okay, so here is that yarn tail. So I'm going to bring this yarn around this way. Where's my working yarn is right here. So it's through there. It's going to come through both like that. And then that tail, I can just kind of tighten it up so that it actually becomes a stitch. And then when I weave this in, everything will be fine. So I've got the hem finished, and now everything's joined up so I can continue knitting the rest of the hat going upward. So you may wonder why I didn't just knit a regular hem with no holes and the purl bumps and then just pick up the scarf from the purl bumps. That was my original idea, but what I was worried about is that as I pick up stitches through these bumps, and then I have a scarf that's hanging down from there and it's getting wrapped around, it's going to pull on those loops, and I really didn't want to do that. So I thought this would be a little sturdier. I would join these 2 sets of loops together and then continue on from there. Now I have to figure out what stitch pattern I want to do. I want to do something. I don't want to just do stockinette for the hat. All right, so I've got the hat portion done of my hat scarf. So you can see I used a stitch pattern for the hat body, and then I used the simple way of decreasing for the hat crown so that there's not really defined spirals or anything like that. I find that it creates a really nice form-fitting hat crown rather than one that's a little bit more gathered at the top, which a lot of them do. So along here you can see I have the 2 halves that will each be a scarf that I'm going to close up. But I wanted to show you where I got the stitch pattern for this and then show you the stitch pattern I'm going to use for the scarf. It's not important to me that this be the most lovely thing. It needs to be functional. I'm going to be wearing it out in the dark and the cold inside my coat. So I just need to keep myself entertained. So for the hat pattern, I used a stitch pattern from the Knit Stitch Pattern Handbook. I use this quite a lot. I like this book a lot. In fact, I gave it to my daughter and then I missed it, so I bought myself another one. It's this little boxes pattern. What I like about this book is that they have written instructions and charted instructions. And you can see by the chart, if you want to knit it in the round, you use what's in the boxed area. If you want to knit flat, then you use this. So you have the additional, it's a multiple of 4 stitches. If you're knitting in the round, it's multiple of 4 stitches plus 2 if you're knitting flat. And that doesn't mean a multiple of 6. It means a multiple of 4 stitches. So some multiple of 4 could be 100, and then you add the 2. So it could be multiple of 4 could be 20, and then you add 2. Or a multiple of 4 could be 40, and then you add 2. And that's for symmetry, so that each end of this flat surface is symmetrical. But you don't need that when you knit in the round because the whole thing will be symmetrical because it's in the round. So this is the multiple. I didn't want something that had too many stitches in the multiple or in the vertical repeat because it's bulky weight yarn and there wasn't going to be that many. For the scarf part, I'm going to use this book called Sequence Knitting by Cecilia Campochiaro. There's different ways of doing sequences where you do, if you're doing flat, you could do every row exactly the same, or you could do a thing where it's called serpentine. So let's say the stitch pattern is multiple of 6 stitches, well, then you'd use a multiple of 6 stitches plus some additional number of stitches, and you would work those 6 stitches, and then as you got to the end, maybe you had a multiple of 6 stitches plus 4, you'd work the final 4 stitches, and then when you turned to the next row, you would continue on and you do the 5th stitch and the 6th stitch, and then repeat the 6 stitches. So you can do it all kinds of ways. But I wanted something that would lie flat because it's a scarf, interesting to knit, and something where you could actually see the design. And so I did like the look of these scarves here on the front. They have them all here, and then they have the names of them. And I chose the one, it's called Morant. It's a multiple of 6 stitches, and you just do knit 1, purl 1, knit 2, purl 2. So you do use a multiple of 6 stitches, and then you work every row exactly the same. And because it's knit 1, purl 1, knit 2, purl 2, you're ending with a knit 2, purl 2 at the end of one row. The beginning of the next row, you're doing knit 1, purl 1 in the first 2 stitches, and then knit 2 in the second. So it's kind of an offset thing, and it's going to create, I believe it's going to create this pattern right here. Now, this is using a finer yarn than what I'm using. I'm using bulky weight. I only need 24 stitches, but that should work. So I have these 2 halves. I'm going to do one half first. I'm going to do this one right here. And what I had the long tail cast on the part that's out here. So I'm going to catch the right leg of every one of these stitches, just like I did when I was joining the hem up here at the top. So I'll have 24 stitches on the back needle and 24 on the front, and then I can do a 3 needle join, and then I can start my hat pattern. Okay, now what I realized is that I have the needles on this side and I actually want them over here because I want the right side facing me when I do my 3 needle join, so that these stitches will be joined as a knit, because on the back side you're going to see it as a purl. So I'm just going to transfer these around. So this is just like when I was joining the hem. It's a 3 needle join. So I just work these together, and I'm not binding off, I am just joining. And then my stitch pattern is the same on every row. It's knit 1, purl 1, knit 2, purl 2. So I will start that with the wrong side facing, and it will work just fine. As promised, I'll model my hat scarf. I'm going to take my microphone off because I think it's going to make some awful noises if I don't. So you can see that this does the job. There's no gaps. I don't have any gaps in the front, and I can keep this up here. My glasses are still going to frost up if it's like 20 below type of weather, because the breath just goes right up and just freezes on there. But in terms of me keeping warm, it should be great. So I'm really happy with the result. It's not at all glamorous, but it is going to prevent me from being too cold on my evening walk. And so that's a win. Finish of February is coming up in a couple of weeks, and I have already created the chat forum, the chat discussion thread in my Ravelry group, which I will link to down below. In it, you can talk about what you're thinking about. You can post pictures of what you're doing, just talk things through. I like to use January to kind of figure out what I'm going to do, and then finish up my current projects and get those out of the way so that I can tackle my UFOs, my unfinished projects. But you can use Finish It February however you want. Somebody in that Ravelry discussion thread said she's thinking of January as Jumpstart January. So she's really going through like her stash and pulling out all of her bags of UFOs and evaluating, just figuring out what it is that she has, which is what you need to know. And the whole point of Finish It February is to pull all of those unfinished objects out so that you can reacquaint yourself with them. Sometimes they can get really old because you've just forgotten about them. And so once you meet them, you're reintroduced to them, you can decide if you want them to continue being in your life or not. Or if you're going to toss them, donate them, rip, frog it, and reuse the yarn for something else. But that's what you can do over the next couple of weeks, is kind of evaluate what you have and what you think you want to do. And I also use Finish It February as Fix It February. I have a couple of sweaters, older sweaters with really frayed cuffs that I want to fix. And I have a couple of projects that got put in the misbehaving corner for a while. Some of them, one of them longer and one of them just a recent project that I got fed up with and put to the side. I use it for different things. Some people use it to work through their leftover stash and make things out of them, make hats for charity or whatever out of all of their leftover bits, or whatever. People darn socks, people do all kinds of things. It's really a bring your own project, sort of make along month. And if you want the community to talk with, you can use that chat group in my Ravelry group. On February 1st, I will also open a second discussion thread, which is for no chatting. It's just to post photos of what you finished and tell us some information about it, like the yarn, if you know it, the pattern, how long it's been in hibernation, if you have an idea about that, those kinds of things. And anything posted in that discussion thread automatically gives me permission to use those photos at the video montage that I do when we're done with Finish It February. So to kind of honor everybody who's participating in the program. And you don't have to participate in any of these. You can participate in the chat thread, tell people all about what you're doing, and you do not have to post anything to the finished object no chat thread, or you can just post things to the no chat thread and never tell anybody anything else about it, or you can just do this on your own and not tell anybody in the world, because it's all about you and your knitting and what you would like to do with it. But it is a month I look forward to all year, especially when I get mad at a project and I shove it to the side. I know that I can I'll feel better about it in February and I can address it at that point. So I'll leave links down below to the discussion thread if you are interested in seeing what people have. Now, there was somebody who said something the other day about how she was so embarrassed because she had a project that had to be 10 years old, and she was ashamed to even admit it. And I'm like, first time I pulled all my projects out, there were a lot of them that were 10 years old. I had forgotten about them. And then they just got older while I forgot about them. And then this is, projects that I had started in 2005 or later when I came back to knitting. And then I had like 3 unfinished sweaters that were from like 1990. So I think the oldest project that anybody has finished was maybe 40 years old. It was for a child who had grown up and had children of their own. So it's never too late to finish it, or it's never too late to get rid of it. If you know that you're never going to finish it, you don't like it, you don't care about whether or not it ever gets done, that is an acceptable reaction to an unfinished object. But I do hope you'll join me with Finish It February or Fix It February, however you intend to use it. Well, that's it for this week's Casual Friday. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below, or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.